Trump loses to the Republican candidate for 2028?
If he runs again, which presumably he will, because he's...
you think that he would go... How old would he be then?
Let's see, he's 78 now, so
82.
he'd be coming up on 82. I have a hard time believing that Trump will go into the darkness quietly. So I think that if he loses in this election, then he will probably proclaim that he did not lose, which he's done before. I think it's unlikely that the Republican voters, that conservative voters are going to turn to him a fourth time. I think that the 3 times is enough. And, again, I hope he wins. I want him to win. If he loses, I think that Republicans are going to say, who is best poised to beat a Democrat? This, by the way, was the mistake in the DeSantis campaign. I think that DeSantis was always going to lose in the primaries because Trump is a magnetic figure, because he's kind of a generational figure. But if DeSantis had a hope of winning, it had to lie in very early on, like right after November 2022, saying, Donald Trump cannot win. I can win. He lost in 2020. He lost us seats in 2022. If you nominate me, I'll win. And the one thing he didn't want to do, I think, was tick off a lot of the Republican base, which believed that Trump had won in 2020.
Yeah, you've got tribalism within the tribe.
Yeah, it was kind of a catch-22 for DeSantis. If he had said Trump lost in 2020, half the base, which believes that Trump won in 2020, is angry at him. And if he doesn't say that Trump lost, then what's your rationale for being on the stage?
Yeah, one of my friends tweeted today on the back of that, voting against the thing you hate. Leftism begins as compassion for the poor, but ends as contempt for the prosperous. Rightism begins as respect for the past, but ends as revulsion for the present. Each side grows to loathe the other's values more than it prizes its own. Politics devours love and defecates hate. And it is funny that it seems to be such a warping force, politics, that people want things to go badly for everyone when their opponents are in power. It's this sort of weird sort of zero-sum type scenario that is self-defeating in a lot of ways.
Well, and I think that's only true because the social fabric of the United States has failed. Meaning you don't feel that way about your own local community. And you don't feel that way about your family. Right? In your own family, even if you're having fights with somebody or disagree with somebody in your family, you don't wish the worst for them. You don't wish that people in your family will suffer so that they learn the lesson. Like, you want things to be good, generally speaking, for the family or for your local community. It's when you don't have social solidarity with somebody that you're like, these people need to fail so I can succeed. Mm-hmm. And I think that it speaks to a much greater crisis in the American body politic, which is to say a much greater crisis in the American heart. Which is what do we even share anymore, right? There's been a lot of talk about this. What do people from California and Florida share, or New York and Texas? And I think the answer is that at a very high level, they used to share a lot of things. And I think they still do share a lot of things, but politics has become so nationalized, and I think social media is a part of this. And the federal government has gained so much power that, it's easy to see that polarize.
The fracturing is now built into the system.
Yeah, and the more you elevate power to the top level, it has to be built into the system, because if you didn't feel like the federal government was all that powerful. Rick Perry, who obviously ran a very unsuccessful presidential campaign in 2012, Rick Perry had what I thought was the best line about government in a presidential race. He said, I want to make Washington, D.C. insignificant in your life. I mean, wouldn't that be delightful? It would be super nice. I've said this to people who are my kind of left-wing friends. Like, wouldn't it be nice if, Donald Trump's president, but you don't have to wake up every day caring what Donald Trump thinks about things, because the federal government just doesn't have that much control over your life. And you want to live in San Francisco and you want to be governed like you live in San Francisco, have at it. That's your problem. And if I don't want to live there, I just won't live there. But I think because the federal government has sucked so much control up to the top level, government is essentially a meat hammer, and it just hammers everything to the same level. And so you can do that more successfully if it's a very small community with a lot of social fabric and a lot of homogeneity in terms of viewpoint. Right? Again, my local community, I live in an Orthodox Jewish community. I'd say the people in my community tend to agree 85% of the time. You take my community and you contrast that with like an upper class liberal enclave in San Jose or something, and the disagreement is going to look more like, we agree 25% of the time, 30% of the time.